for 1 Java Street. Marie, please start with the roll call.
Del Teague,
Here.
Maria Vieira, Rena McKeeva, Trina, she was just here.
I know she is here.
Looks like she was having a connection problem.
Nein.
Steven Chesler,
Here.
Erin Drinkwater,
Kom maar op.
Moish Indig, Rosanna Kaminsky,
Here.
Abraham Leibovitz, Dante Michelli,
Yeah.
Rabbi Niederman,
Hier.
Karen Nieves, Isaac Sofa, Robert Solano, Stephen Weinberg,
Here.
William Vega,
I know he's here.
yeah, I see him. He has to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
Simon Weiser, Michael Andrews, Keith Berger,
Here.
Corey Canton,
Here.
Michael Kowalczyk, Katie Nepotowski,
Here.
Allison Stone,
Here.
Okay, and Trina McKeeva is back in, Marie, I guess you know.
I have 12 people answering the call.
Marie, I'm here. I wasn't there when you called my name. It's Trina.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, we have a quorum. All right. So why don't we get started with the presentation? This is a presentation for 1 Java Street, a waterfront application. And who will be presenting?
Isaac Henderson, I'll start off and then I'm gonna work with Karen on the presentation tonight. First off, I just want to introduce myself as Isaac Henderson. I'm a development director at Lend-Lease. We are leading the development of the 1 Java waterfront as well as the 1 Java overall development. I'm joined tonight by representatives from Marvel Architects, the lead project architect, as well as representatives of the landscape architect and waterfront architect at Jake Porter Field Operations, as well as members of my land use attorney for Fried Frank. And we're here all available to answer questions for you as we go through this presentation. Before we get started on the presentation, I did, however, want to take this opportunity just to update this group and you guys about the India Street Pier and the ferry landing. I understand, I know how crucial that is as a resource to this community, as well as it is to us at Lend-Lease as well. First, I just want to reassure everybody that we are fully committed to returning ferry service as quickly and safely as possible. We've been hard at work since the ferry initially went down on the 23rd of May. And we're not only fully committed to bringing it back, but we also really are committed to bringing it as safely and securely as possible to limit interruptions moving forward, to ensure that it's up and running as safely as well as done. So we have since May been working tirelessly first to go through a 4-step process really related to first investigation, understanding why the piles on the ferry failed, That is now completed. The second was coming up and working with our public partners at EDC and Hornblower to identify possible solutions in engineering, and working with our engineers to develop a plan forward. That is also now complete, and now we're in our final process of permitting, or second to final process, where we are now have to work with 3 public agencies, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the New York City Small Business Services. They're the 3 agencies that oversee any construction along the waterfront and in the East River itself related to the piers. We have submitted applications to DEC and ACOE, and we anticipate submitting to SBS in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So we're making significant progress there. From there, we'll then begin what could be a 4 to 6 month process of permitting to get the agencies to approve, review, and permit the drawings. We're also entering into a moratorium imposed by DEC on the waterfront that limits any construction to happen between the months of December and May due to fisheries and spawning. So as we go through this process, we will not be able to commence any construction till May. But we're hoping that our permitting during that, during the moratorium period will be done and completed, and then hopefully begin construction in June of 2022. We anticipate construction will take somewhere between 3 to 4 weeks, and we're really pushing to try to get the ferry up by the end of the month to have it back up and running by July. So we're well aware of how significant of a resource that this is to the community. We badly also align with that and wanted to be back up and running, but I just wanted to assure this group that we're doing everything possible to bring the ferry back up and running. So I just wanted to give that update before we get started on the overall presentation. I did sort of mention my team members, but where we are in the process is, any development on a waterfront site like this requires approvals from DCP for waterfront public access areas. Our application for those approvals includes 2 zoning actions. The first, which is the zoning action that's been technically referred to the community board today, is a zoning authorization under section 62822B to make modifications to the design requirements for waterfront public access areas. At the end of this presentation, Karen will go over in detail the 2 specific modifications we are requesting. The second action is a zoning certification under section 62811, for which DCP will confirm that the proposed design of the waterfront under public access areas on the site meets all the technical requirements under the zoning. So that's technically why we're here. We're also going to run through you our entire plan as well, just so you have some context. So before that we get started on the plan, I just want to give a little bit of an overview of who we are, who I work for. I have had the opportunity to present to many of you and get to know many of you, but as just an overview, Lend-Lease, we're an international, fully integrated property and infrastructure group operating across development, construction, and investment management. We're not new to New York, and we're certainly not new as a company. We're established in 1958, and we have 22 major urbanization projects across 9 gateway cities. We've at this point developed over 21 million square feet, either under development or previously developed. Next slide. And really my work and our focus is really here in New York. We've been here since 1979, and we have over 500 employees based out of our office here over in the MetLife building, and we developed over 1,100 residential units in progress. So development is core to Lend-Lease's mission. We have a lot of experience in this area, and really developing dynamic and exciting places is core to our mission. And we really feel like One Java, and specifically the One Java waterfront, will be a significant asset and part of that as well. So what you're going to see now is really us running through with you guys where we are on our plan and our waterfront, and then opening up for committees. This is not a project really about the residential building. It's about the waterfront. The development is still being, the residential piece is still being designed and going through that, and that's an as-of-right project. So today's focus is on the waterfront itself. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen to run you through our current plan.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone again. So just as a quick recap of where we are today with regard to the process and the public engagement process as well. So in November, land leases started to introduce themselves once they got the site to neighborhood organizations. In January, we went to various community groups and showed and listened and showed where we were at the time. In March, Lend-Lease introduced themselves to elected officials. In April and May, we came back to neighborhood organizations to collect more feedback, input on where we were. In June, we came to the community board meeting for Parks and Waterfront Committee. June 23rd, I believe. October, we submitted to city planning our drawing and are referred. And now we're here, November 1st, in front of you, the Land Use Committee. Some of you have seen these slides with, I'm sorry?
Aya?
Oh, some of you have,
Kylie had called. Kylie had called.
David, do you want to mute yourself, please? Thank you. Some of you have seen this slide before. I mean, we think it's really important, of course, that we show ourselves in the context of Greenpoint, Williamsburg waterfront. The greater waterfront is slowly developed, and the waterfront parks are coming to be continuous. So for us, really importantly, the first thing is to be continuous with the community, with the neighborhood, but also to the north of us, to the south of us, and of course the ferry to the water. The site sits between India Street, Java Street, West Street, of course the water. We have India Street Pier as part of the project, as well as a kind of an upland area, which is about 11,520 square feet. The site context, you might know it. On the left side, we have Java Street. The upper left is Java Street. It's cobblestone street, obviously dead ends into the water. Our neighbor to the south is a kind of a low-lying building, is not changing at the moment. Below that is India Street. You see the new tenant, the new neighbor to the right of it, 21 India, and the site to the left. And then on the right upper is the waterfront as it is today, kind of, in need of cleanup and sort of refurbishing and design. And below that is the pier, the access to India Street Pier today. Some of the site's constraints, the primary ones are the site condition. It's windy, it's salty, the water's edge is broken and obviously need repair. The existing street elevations are quite low. And then the scale of the site, the WPA area is a constraint. The East River has strong currents, as we know, choppy water, there's ferry wakes. So how much we can get into the water was something we looked at early on. Then the flood elevation and the projected sea level rise are always a constraint at the waterfront edge. And of course, city planning zoning requirements are another. The waterfront public access area is in green here. It includes the pier, as I've mentioned. And in addition, Lend-Lease is providing the area in yellow, which is almost double that upland area. The design is inspired by, Greenpoint shipbuilding, the history of shipbuilding. The slip to us kind of connotes kind of a freedom of sorts, right? It's for people, it's for boat, it's just to kind of watch the coming and going. So something really freeing about that. And so in the design, as you see these kind of, sort of diagonal lines, they're not only pathways, they kind of are kind of a nod to that history, to the slips, right, and what they can do. So this site plan shows with the pier, but we will focus really on the upland. We're not doing a lot on the pier. The waterfront site plan is what's the area bounded in orange is the WPA area. We have the India Street Pier. I'm going to go from left bottom to right, sort of counterclock. We have a number of gardens, upland gardens, riparian gardens that also incorporate sort of a living shoreline, if you will. We have the river landing. That's one of the terminuses of the slips. This angle here, it's sort of immersed in planting. The next one down is one walks down. There's, of course, benches, more gardens. The next slip down is what we call the prow. It's another sitting steps coming down that kind of hugs the get down to the south of it. The get down is sort of a series of steps that get to the water. South of that, there is it's a platform area. We have what we call the pier reveal. It's a cutout in the platform, fitted with tidal pools and a counter height sort of table with sitting stools around it. And to the south of it, we have this social alcove, these double-sided benches that sort of offer, engagement and gathering and so on. When we go down, it's actually ramping down to Java Street. Additional to what you've seen in June, we have a planted area at the terminus of Java, some seating, lighting, as well as the sitting steps that are on the south side of the building, sort of. The idea is that, if there are events on Java Street, there's a kind of a place to observe it and to kind of watch also the water and whatever is happening there. Going up, that area where you see these white boxes with my cursor is what we call the river room. It's part of the building, flexible for now, as well as this kind of a small bosque of trees here that is left flexible space with sitting, things like that. Going up a little bit, you would have that slip that cuts through that and gives us a ADA access to this area, what we call the perch. The perch in itself and the river room are a little bit elevated from the waterfront, just to get us a little bit closer to the design flood elevation of the building. Here we have movable sittings and tables, also amongst trees and shade. We have a deck with Adirondack chairs, a kind of a feature lounge seat with a planter in it. And then another counter top bar-like that observes, that kind of faces Midtown, if you will, but also faces the pier. So if you were waiting for someone, that's a great place to wait and see them approach from the ferry. There is the lawn in the middle, flexible lawn, seating steps at the edge of the perch. That's about it for the program and the site plan. In terms of programming, we kind of balance the passive and active recreation. So we have planting, native planting, soft edges. There is the lawn that's left flexible for the various uses. Socialization, various furnishing that sort of encourage various type of socialization by different kind of groups, right? Abilities. F&B, I was thinking something that lends itself to the waterfront as well. It kind of is a low-key environment, lounge, a get down, as well as sort of ecological education moment. And we have these tidal pools and riparian gardens and things like that we hope become part of that story. Active programming. So as I mentioned, the lawn is a flexible use lawn. We hope that there will be some yoga, Tai Chi, and things like that on the lawn. Markets we see more at the ends of the streets, India Street and Java Street, a little bit more hardscapey and able to take tenting a little more easier. Performances, we could see performances and movie nights on the lawn with the extension into the perch. So one could sit on the perch and watch the same, obviously, screening or performance. Having space for community meetings, block parties, of course, dances and community events, as well as workshops that we also envision kind of spill onto the streets, perhaps for more space on the weekends and things like that. Softscape, so there is the riparian edge right along the water. It's a little tougher, more limited in terms of what species can take the salt water. Then we have a transitional garden, series of them. We have the lawn and we have the upland garden. The intention is that the planting looks kind of wild. It's not so manicured, with the exception of the lawn. It's not intended to be mowed, but kind of left for, to attract pollinators and create habitat and be part of the life cycle of the river. A little more about the planting. So as I said, at the water's edge, we have the Spartina patents that can take salt water along with solidago, the bearberries and things that could take salt water. They will be planted within the riprap at the very edge, right along the bulkhead. You could see the bulkhead is waterward of that. The next one, the transitional planting, will include aster. In terms of the tree species, we'll have the Pinus rigidia, the pitch pine. We also have the other pine that is used in in Domino and Grand Ferry Park, the shorter pine, the short Pinus rigidia, and sweet gum, as well as grasses and shrubs like the baccharis and things that also lend a kind of wildness to the planting beds. A little bit upland, we will have ornamental trees. We'll have amelanchias, we have Nisa, we have Betula. We also have, on the perch, we will have one specimen of a magnolia tree as well. And various, again, shade-loving and sun-loving, depending on where they are, planting that as seasonal interest. Connection to the river, again, the pier, we want to encourage people to come and fish and use the pier as much as possible. The river landing, as mentioned, it's kind of a recessed landing in the planting in the riparian garden. So really feeling as if you're closer to the water. The same with the stony get down, kind of a more natural looking, get down. And then we have the pier reveal with the tidal pools at the bottom. That one could see how they, the life of a tidal pool over the course of a day, over the course of a week, a season, a year, which would be interesting. Some of the sustainability aspects that were incorporated here with regard to stormwater management and natural resources. So we've added 6,500 square feet of permeable surfaces, using engineered soil that allow for quick drainage. Incorporating leaving shoreline technique at the very edge of the water. We are adding 36 trees, of course, all reducing heat island, the heat island effect, both the soft surfaces and the trees, sequestering carbon and providing shade. All these also increase habitat area. They will be native plants. Native plants. Attracting pollinators, and of course the tidal pools will be another element of that. So walking around the site, this is the approach from India Street. Coming up to our left would be the perch, the kind of area that takes you upward to that kind of wooden deck. To the right would be the pier, and to the front is the water. If you look to the right, you see the approach to the pier. The sort of the ramp that leads one to the pier will be newly created, newly done, and that would have sort of a curb and railing and so on, in the same fashion as the waterfront. Once you're at the pier, you look back, and this is the park. You see the lawn, you see the seating, you see some of the landing that are kind of embedded in the plantings, and the perch beyond. This is that river landing that takes you down closer to the water. It's not a get down per se, but it is immersed. And that's the idea with the Spartina and the goldenrods. The get down a little bit south of that. Here we were able to remove some of the guardrails we had previously. I don't know if you remember, but really made it feel more natural and really a stony kind of get down to the water. As you move south, this is the area that's on platforms. So here we have the pier reveal with a countertop and the social room. And coming down to Java Street, again, there's the added planted area. There are the seating steps that kind of look towards what we call the river room, an area, you know, to the street where hopefully things will happen. Going back on the perch, just to show a few images of that as well, is the kind of that other countertop that overlook the pier. So again, if you're waiting for the ferry or you're waiting for a friend, it's a really comfortable place to sit. There is this kind of big planter in the middle that would also be a lounge seating on one side, a bench on this side, and a series of movable seatings as well. Getting a little closer, the Rondex chairs overlooking the lawn, the water, the view, and a kind of an aerial perspective of the entire site, the project. A little bit about furnishing and materials. I know we had a few, you know, a few questions about it back in June. So just wanted to point out, we have bike racks, we have trash receptacles, we have a series of benches with backs, without backs. The area that have little X's are companion seating. Those for strollers, for ADA, for wheelchairs. We have as well the kind of that pier reveal countertop, then also a wood bar on top of the guardrail surrounding the pier reveal only. The railing underneath is stainless steel, and the railing around the platform is all stainless steel per the WAP. But here at the pier reveal, we are changing the top rail to wood. Light poles, we're using the Flushing Meadow pole throughout the site. And at the end here, where you see in teal color, we may have to use DOT standard bench. We will see if we could use the same language. DOT had requested their bench. The palette of seating within the WPAA is such, it's made of wood. Exact species is yet to be determined. We're looking at various sustainable approaches. So there are long benches with backs, without backs, short benches with backs, without backs, double-sided bench, and seating that is embedded in the seating steps. And the pier reveal looks something like this. Again, there's a kind of countertop with a wood bar top around, so comfortable and warm when somebody leans against it to look down to the tidal pools, as well as a kind of an area for ADA users. Other furnishing would be the bike rack, the litter receptacles, and the Flushing Meadow luminaire. A bit about paving. So this is the context of materials surrounding our site. We have the asphalt paver along 21 India waterfront. We have a composite decking in a small portion. There's a precast concrete hex paver in this secondary path in the back there, 21 India again. And then jumping to Java, there is the old cobblestone. The material we're proposing here is a simple palette. The light blue is a precast concrete paver. There'll be a kind of a darker gray material with a bit of aggregates just to give it a little bit texture, a little bit of life, so it doesn't feel kind of dead. The slips, the pink areas, will be again precast concrete planks that sort of are arranged like planks along a slip. That's the idea of the intent that it would bring to mind, that the slip. And on top of the perch, because it's a little bit elevated, we feel comfortable with using decking, Kebony wood, along with some of the furnishing here. So really simple paving palette. The waivers that are requested are two. We actually eliminated a few, maybe since we've seen you. So the first one would be the screening buffer. It's required that we have 50% evergreen species and that they should be at least 4 feet high. The area where we're asking for the waiver is this planter where my cursor is right now. It's this planting bed right here. It's a larger planting bed. And that is because we want people to be able to see the views to the water. We don't want to obstruct the views. So the ratio of evergreen and the 4 feet is sort of is to create transparency, to be able to see in and out, you know, from and to the river room, which is this area here. The second waiver that we're asking is for the guardrail. We're asking to keep the existing guardrail along the pier. We're not doing a lot on the pier at the moment. There's a thought that, you know, once it gets done, there might be, you know, done at a later date. And then the other aspect of the guardrail is we're asking for a waiver from the stainless steel top to incorporate the countertop and the wood bar at the pier reveal. Again, just to kind of lend warmth, to connect it to the rest of the furnishing, and to make it kind of comfortable to lean against. And Isaac, I'm gonna hand it to you here for the community benefits.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, just I think just to sort of talk about just the overall project. You know, we're viewing this sort of a real lot of community benefits here, but just running through them, obviously, you know, real focus is really improving sort of what is an underutilized vacant abandoned space that will really enliven and give new access to the waterfront. In addition to that, we're also going beyond what we're required to in the WPAA area and adding additional open space beyond what zoning requires. And although the building's as a right, it will be 30% affordable. So we will be adding a significant amount of affordable housing overall to the housing stock, as well as activating the ground floor plane, both facing the waterfront, but also along West Street, enhancing sort of the ability to make this sort of a walkable, community-driven neighborhood. You know, we're also currently engaging with a number of community groups, including that would sort of be provided with opportunity for around educational opportunities in the waterfront itself. And then obviously just the project aside, there's going to be significant workforce benefits. And we're really focused not only on sort of employing sort of minority and women-owned businesses, but really focusing on local persons who are either unemployed or unemployed and looking to enter the construction field for the first time. So we're really excited not only about bringing a brand new dynamic waterfront to this community, but the overall project itself, we think is going to be not only an asset for those things, but really provide a lot of benefits, both on from housing standpoint, retail opportunities, educational, and workforce.
And that's it, everyone. I'm gonna toggle back to the site plan, but by all means, if there's anything anybody wants to discuss or a particular slide to go to, I can go there. So opening up to questions or comments, if anybody.
Del, I have a,
Anyone have a question?
I do, Del.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Karen and Isaac and everyone. I've attended community meetings where I've kind of gotten a sneak preview of some of this. And so overall, I just really enjoy the design. It's, I think, one of the more interesting, you know, private, public waterfront developments for the open space, especially mostly near the waterfront, you know, where the varied interactivity and access, and just love the plantings and the tidal pools and get downs and the steps, and really good. I just had, you know, I guess one other question about related to the, I guess it was this, the first, I guess, you know, waiver or modification, the reduction of evergreen species in that spot, or that's, I guess, beneath the trees you have. Is it going to be lawn, or is it going to be plantings, or?
Oh, no lawn. The lawn is, sorry, I hear myself. The lawn is also only that very light green. The rest will be grasses, shrubs. We do want to have a lot of shrubs that attract, that provide habitats, that, you know, that provide kind of seasonal difference. So we don't actually you know, there will be shrubs that will be probably 4 feet or more. But the idea is that there's some transparency, that it doesn't feel so, that it doesn't feel like there's a private space behind, because it's not really private. This is all retail. And so the idea is that you see people see out and in, and it's a good thing. So.
Okay, great. Sounds good. About this, the second request. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of pushing back on the guardrails on the pier, which are essentially cyclone fencing. And it's kind of a real bummer in terms of the design. And it obviously doesn't comply with the waterfront access plan. So I really wish, you know, something, you know, designed could go in there other than the fencing. I know it's probably, you know, extensive to pull the existing fence railing out of there and install something more interesting, but still that, you know, that pier is forever. Obviously gets heavily used, and you go into such, you know, the design of the waterfront, you know, has such amazing details. It's just kind of a shame to have it contrasted by, you know, that blasé fence. So, and just one thing I just wanted to check out was the, in a previous, you know, the previous ownership, previous design had, I guess, kind of a public open space, or call it atrium, that went back, you know, into where the physical building was. I guess it was kind of a cantilever design. So there would be, you know, some sort of public access, within the, you know, the building footprint. Just wondering if there are plans to do something similar with the upcoming new design of the building. Thanks.
In this case, in lieu of something like that, there was this whole area. I don't know if you see my cursor is completely, it's given as similar to what was before a covered space. This might, I don't know, I can't recall exactly the proportions, but you know, the idea is that this is uncovered space.
Right. The previous design, it actually, I mean, there was this supplemental space, and then there was an inner space went all the way to India, to West Street, or almost to West Street. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we don't have that in this design.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Dale, can I make a couple comments? Anybody else? Can I? Can you hear me?
Something, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. Michele, and then Katie is next.
No, thank you for the presentation. A few things I've actually concern. I know it's not a very big space, and looking at your page right now is a lot of icon with a lot of elements, which I know where they are, many of these, so they belong somewhere else. We're trying to bring all this idea in. It's a very small space. The only things I have concern, and I'm personally been talking for years about naturalize the waterfronts, and definitely some of these ideas are here, but I see that it's kind of very boxed. There's all these compartments. You'll be using the word rooms, and I feel it's this idea of rooms, all these many compartments, which they don't naturalize at all. You know, we have concrete, we have other material, and we have the deck. I don't know, I don't feel extremely comfortable with that idea. I wish there was some design that could be more a flowing one, a natural one, emphasizing green spaces, emphasizing grass or other elements. So this one of the first graphic things that just appear on the plan. Of course, there wasn't a section, another series of elevation that could allow me probably to understand what elevation we had. I have noted some that I saw 7 feet, 9 feet, probably 5 feet is the the lowest point at the get down. So I believe something we cannot perceive from this drawing, but I look at the number at the other drawings you have, we are pretty elevated from the water. So I know individually we can look at each component of this, but I feel there are too many components. I believe all these elements, the bench and the things that could assist in a more open space. I feel also that this may preclude the way how we are design-wise linking, because the general idea is to have a fluent waterfront. I know things have been happening years after year. This, I believe, has been a challenge to envision. You know, that's what the master plan would have allowed us to guide a little bit more to this process. So this one of my question: could we have done something that would have emphasized open space and emphasizing more on the general get down? You know, I believe Transmitter Park has been always along the years a very good example how a riprap is actually accessible. You know, despite you walking on stone, you know, but it's not very elevated. And then other note while you were talking. Yeah, the pier reveal. I don't know. The stool is. It felt like it's dedicated to the pier, to serve the pier, waiting for the pier. I believe one of the emphasis maybe could be to really think at this small portion of land. It's a park, and linked together with other components can become a park. And maybe those elements are good, but if would have be spread all these components, the bench and the stools by the pier reveal, they would have spread along a bigger waterfront and maybe give space to actually the park and the naturalized aspect of this portion. This is my comment.
And it might make sense to look at the last rendering that shows it, because it is 200 feet. It's certainly not the biggest piece, but I do think that might show more what the intention is, because you can see how much planting.
Yeah, so we have a big area comparatively to the scale of the site, right? Big area here and another big area here of kind of more wilder planting. There is the lawn here. And we are obliged to provide certain amount of pathways and certain amount of benches, you know, as part of the zoning. There is a kind of a very softly inclined pathway that connects us to the north, and there's one to the south, a ramp, in fact, in the south. And the get down, we softened to the extent that we could with stone, and in fact, similarly to what you're saying, thinking of riprap that would allow, you know, people to kind of stone hop, if you will. So you see, you know, I mean, it is the site. It is, you know, we try to put as much as we could into it that would both, you know, satisfy the zoning requirements, satisfy the kind of wanting to see more wilder and more ecological based design, while also providing the lawn that's required and all these other amenities.
And I think we did make amendments to the get down to make it more accessible to the water. There's definitely some feedback there. I mean, obviously the currents are strong, so we're balancing that with safety. And then there also was sort of desire from a lot of feedback that we got from other groups to have active spaces that could be programmed a little bit easier, that weren't as much. So I think, you know, we're striking a balance between the two. I think your comments, I hear them, but I think, you know, there's a lot of different sort of, you know, people coming in different directions, and we tried to address a lot of them. And I think, you know, there is a lot of sort of great open space that will be opportunity for people to sit and reflect and take in the greenery.
Yeah, but we've been taking away the green. I believe the pier is such a strong element of a main artifact there. Whatever, I don't know, we have 10,000 square feet of pier. I believe it would have been a very good balance to give back, you know, to a little bit more natural, and instead of having concrete and deck. But again, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the rendering? Thinking about what you're asking for, the variance you're asking for, are those trees bigger than what you're asking for? And those are big trees. Are those trees what you're asking to be shrunk, or am I in the wrong place?
No,
what I'm looking at?
the zoning requires a screening buffer between what is private and what is public. And the screening buffer usually is made of at least 50% evergreen, and it should really screen. And in this case, we don't really see the need to screen because everything is usable and, you know, welcoming. And it's meant to be seen through.
So these trees are not evergreen.
Some of them are actually will be evergreens, but they're not. The zoning calls for a screening buffer. You know how you see sometimes evergreens that are just a screen.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it kind
So
of
this
wants.
is what you're asking for is what we're seeing right here.
So yeah, so we're asking. We will have trees. We have more than required trees. We will have shrubs. We will have grasses. You know, and perennials, but we're not putting 50% 4-foot tall evergreen. Yeah.
Can you explain the second variance again one more time? What that
The
was?
second variance is, so it's the stainless steel guardrail. We ask to keep the guardrail that's existing on the pier because we're not really touching the pier much. Whereas, and the second part of it is that guardrail along on the pier reveal, the top bar. We're asking for a waiver for the top bar from being a stainless steel to being wood, because it's a countertop, it's a lean bar. We want people to feel comfortable against it. The bottom of this guardrail is the same as what's required as the wall, so we're not asking for a full kind of modification to that guardrail. It's only to the top bar.
I'm not sure you answered Trina's question about the screening and the evergreens. The picture that you're showing us has trees that are clearly, or they appear to be very tall trees.
Yeah, we have trees.
So that's not where you're asking for the waiver?
Yes.
Is the waiver behind those taller trees?
No, sorry.
Do you want to pull up the site plan to show that where this buffer is supposed to be? So this relates specifically to the screening buffer, which is a narrow portion along the boundary of the waterfront public access area next to private space. That area is supposed to have the evergreens to create a real visual screen between the public space and the private space. So that's there.
Del, the area that you were looking at you're looking at some of the trees that are shown in here. If you were complying, what you would see would be, you know, evergreens sort of running from the ground all the way up, and you wouldn't be able to see through the trees. You wouldn't be able to have plantings because it would just be one kind of shrub. That's like a hedge, is almost the way I would think of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
it'd be
it's
like a
more
wall,
permeable,
like a
but
solid wall. Yeah.
yeah, it's just not a wall of trees. It's just trees and plantings as opposed to a wall of one kind of tree.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Katie, I know Katie has some questions. Katie Napotarski.
Hi, I have some questions. Thanks, Al. I have some questions and some recommendations. But first, I just want to acknowledge how far this shoreline has come from the northern parcels, which were all hard edge. And so it's really nice to see this difference. And also, I know that you've worked with groups a lot to, you know, get the elements that should be there or that people want. And I think it's just great. Okay, so I do agree with some of what Sante says, but I'm not asking for really recommendations in that regard because of all the work that has been done and input that has been given. I think it's at the end game now. And also I do believe that there is some kind of a balance there. Okay, so here's some recommendations. One, that cobblestones, which are on Java Street currently, the old cobblestones, that they somehow be repurposed if the originals are not going to be used on Java Street. The same thing was done at Marsha P. Johnson. You can see them there. They look beautiful, along with new simulated cobblestones. So if they can be used somewhere in the design, or some of them. Next, curves at the corners. They did this also in Marsha P. Johnson. So every angle in this design is a hard edge. And I would just recommend softening those edges. The waterfront text amendment does say curved paths. There are no curves here. It would be nice to have some curves. I don't know if you're agreeable to that, but if there are not curves as a recommendation, at least the angles where the paths meet can have a curve to them, rather than be like this or be like this, because people are going to walk, take the shortcut around those curves. Changing that, changing that, just that slight little bit can make all the difference, I think, in terms of how something looks. Now, I have a contractor at the door, so I have to run and get that, and I will be right back. Somebody else, guys. I'm sorry, it's really poor timing.
Actually, I wonder if you took Katie's suggestion, if that would make Sante feel a little bit better about the design. What do you think, Sante?
Sorry, say it again.
If they took Katie's suggestion to make things more curved and softer, would that help you with your concerns?
Unfortunately, I wish I didn't have this understanding. And of course, I see this whole box, and of course the hard edge, but it's not just the hard edge. I see things tri-dimensionally, and of course the plan is what we have, but I can already see this tri-dimensionally. I believe we have compartmented, we have treated this portion of waterfront like a Mossen interior space, creating all these components that, yes, they fit the requirement, all these elements that we kind of wanted, but those icons, those pictures telling us those belong to other spaces. They've been done in a different context. I don't see the waterfront I love to see. Also, in regard to deck continuity, of which we've been struggling, and it's been very difficult. And every time I wish this could be the opportunity. And yes, we have achieved to have certain element. This is not what we got on the north side. But I feel it's so boxy, so many elements, and the private part, the public part, and the tree. I see a lot of division. And when I said something more fluent, something could flow together, that idea of naturalization definitely will cancel those hard edge. But I understand, maybe it's too late, but I don't know if Katie will resolve the general design concept. I believe it's an issue of design concept, which I don't feel really tuned. I can like individually each components, but together I feel that there is something is not really clicking. And then going back to the railing, this wouldn't be a good precedent. Katie has been talking for years, trying to be consistent with the master plan. Every time we go for variance for something like that, railing has been always something very important that the community battled for, and also the pavers. So we're talking about concrete master plan. We're calling for asphalt pavers. So I forgot to mention that. I was even wondering, are we introducing also a new material that is not, I believe, contemplated in the waterfront master plan? So that's what
we looked at the
Okay,
asphalt
can I-
paver.
Sorry.
I would just say the asphalt pavers, we're trying to actually use a better paver. The asphalt is petroleum based, right? It adds a lot of heat to any pathway, right? It emits heat as a material. It's not so great. There are concrete pavers, the hex pavers and others that are used along the waterfront. So we actually try to use similar gray. So in the color palette, that's what is to the north of us, but stay away from the asphalt.
No, I have nothing against the
Can you
concrete.
do, if possible?
One at a time, please.
Sorry.
I've been a brutalist in design, and I love the concrete. It was just in reference to the fact that some of the asphalt pavers that perform very well even during the hurricanes. They are still there, and because they are in the master plan, to avoid the precedent that we bring another material. You know, of course, I'm not against the concrete. I love the concrete. I'm sure there's many other products which I don't know. You just that's all. It's purely a reference. We have a master plan to guide us, you and other developer, and they will still have to continue to design this waterfront.
But Sante,
That's my answer to you.
Sante, I don't understand. Are you objecting to the use of the concrete pavers?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of vague. I saw they were saying concrete, but we're supposed to have asphalt. That's what our master plan is telling us. And the same, the railing, we asked for a variance, and this has been an issue for the community, railing. And Katie, you know, has been battling for the use of the railing. And I know the pier, I don't know, what do they have at the pier right now? A chain link fence or some, I can't remember exactly.
Cyclone fence, that's what I said earlier.
Yeah, so
are you objecting to the wood? Are you objecting to the variance so they can have the wood on top of the rails?
Actually, the wood is always welcome as the bench made of wood. That's a very nice element. I don't know. We will have to look in detail. The concept is kind of vague to see how harmoniously they could be combined. But definitely, the general fence on the pier, I will stick to our still that is in the master plan. And yeah, that's if there is an additional element that the pier reveal with the wood could be integrated in that design, yeah, I won't be against, especially if it's kind of linking to the design of the bench. That could be probably an harmonious integration addition. The pier, I will probably stick to the same, to have the continuity of the waterfront to the rail that is in our master plan. Yeah, and definitely I'm against this all this box, this compartment, those rooms in our park. I wish to be something more fluent. I repeat for the last time. They could naturalize and people could transition from an area to another.
Okay, that I think is clear. And Katie, Sante has mentioned your name a few times with respect to the railings. So do you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a few points to make now that I'm back. Thanks. I understand what Sante is saying about the compartments. If somehow that can be changed a little bit for smaller pathways, I don't know if it can be. But I do understand too that if this was, we've had opportunities before. I'm echoing somebody on. Sorry. If there's, we have had a lot of opportunity for input, and I think that if we wanted to have it much different than this, it should have been set earlier. That said, if it can be compartmentalized, that would be nice. I think there's a way to do that. I know you had to put the ADA access down by the shoreline, and that's changed the design a little bit, I think. But I do think that there are a lot of nice elements. So let me just go back. Having curves at the corner, I think would really soften the whole design. I'd like to say use the Virginia pine. I know you talked about pine, and I don't know if that was one you referred to. I don't know its technical name, but they're native. They grow incredibly well. We have one that we planted in transmitter. It was this big, and it's now like 5 feet in 2 years. Seriously, it's native to the area. Hunter's Point South has some great Virginia pines. Be great if there were plantings for monarch butterfly. I think you probably already considered that. It would be great if we had a monarch corridor all along, as they do now up on the Hudson River in parts. In terms of the asphalt paver, I know that there are different types of asphalt paver. I've seen different ones. Transmitter Park has a really nice one. It seems to get burnished in a nice way rather than looking like asphalt. So just there are different choices of them. I get the one that can look a little burnished. It looks nice after it gets worn a little bit. I say that the waivers are all okay. I like the railing, the wood railing on top of the get down. The waiver for the ferry landing, I do not think that we should approve of that as a board. It is now chain link fence, I believe. I don't think there is any other ferry landing anywhere in New York City that has a chain link fence, and it does not look good. And I don't think that we should approve that waiver. I agree with the waiver for the plantings, absolutely, and I actually applaud you for doing that. It looks like there's shade trees, and I think that's fantastic. In terms of the walkways, I'd like to just see the concrete again, but also to make a suggestion that perhaps some of those walkways could be wood, except for the main path, which needs to, by the shoreline, which I think can't be wood, but maybe some, I think that, well, I know that on the master plan, wood is allowed. Wood is one of the materials. It just could soften it up a little bit. It could soften it up a lot. So it's really is something I would recommend is some of the walkways or the slips being wood.
And
Okay,
we love wood, but it's a little bit low. It could be, you know, it would require a lot of maintenance if it's.
Say it again.
We love wood, but it's the park is a little low. It will, you know, if in case of flooding or whatnot, it would be a lot of maintenance too. And even with no flooding, the wood requires a lot of maintenance. So we kept it to pretty minimal up where it's a little bit higher.
Okay, yeah, I think that there are other parts on the waterfront around, not on our waterfront yet, that are wood. So
they might be higher. Yeah, they might be higher in elevation. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe somehow you could find a way to put that in there because it would soften things a little bit. But that I think that's all of, okay, that's the concrete planks. So that's what the precast concrete planks, that's what those walkways would be. Interesting.
Yeah, the idea is that they feel like a plank of, in some ways, of wood, but it's not going to be wood because of the.
Can I make another suggestion? And I don't know how the other people on the committee would feel, but what about something that kind of mimics bluestone? You know, in Hunter Point South, the narrower walkways are beautiful concrete. That would fit in with the WAP because you have to have a certain amount of gray. It's a beautiful color concrete, and the lines, instead of the lines being all uniform, they're sort of out of like if it goes like this, the lines of them go like this. It's really kind of nice. It seems like maybe.
I mean, that's poured in place. Yeah, that was probably poured in place with joints. score joints in various directions. We actually had a waiver for the concrete, for poured in place concrete, and we removed it in lieu of using the concrete unit pavers, which.
What do you like about the precast concrete planks? I mean, they're just,
I think it feels kind of rugged, a little more kind of, again, a nod to the industrial kind of past. It has a warmth to the aggregate. I think it could feel really
okay.
nice. Yeah. And along with the wood and the concrete pavers and I think it would, yeah, I think
It feels like it blends more. Is that what you're saying? Kind of?
Yeah, and it fits, yeah, it fits the palette of also the cobblestone on Java, also, the kind of, I think it fits nicely,
Okay.
and it is warmer. It's not, we're not, that's, yeah. So.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, so I'm not totally, I'm not
I
making
like the aggregates. I'm not
making
against it.
I'm not making a pitch for the other really hard line or anything. But I want to just say thank you again for really considering what to do here, and coming up with a plan that has a lot of what was intended by the master plan. Just curve those lines a little.
We actually had a straight path, and we kind of curved this whole front line. So
I had
we
a
tried to
question.
soften it, maybe.
I had a
There's
question
ADA
about,
issues too that make it challenging as well, right? So that,
Yeah.
those are good suggestions, Katie. I mean, I hear you on the pier fence. We view ourselves as long-term partners in the community. It's just very expensive to remove that fence at this time. We have a lot of improvements to the pier that we have to do itself structurally first. That's where we're coming from on that. So it's really a cost thing at this point, but we are long-term players in this community, and that pier is a significant portion. So it's maybe something we'll take up at a later date. But right now we're just really focused on getting this online and getting the pier structurally sound. That's really the reason behind it.
I think that it needs to be, if we are to agree to that waiver, Dell and the rest of the committee, I think that there must be a what is that, restrictive declaration or whatever it is that puts a time frame on it, so that it gets done in 1 year or 2 years. I think
We want it done while they're working on the pier, while the pier is closed. I mean, this is the
that's
opportunity
right.
to do it.
You're right, Trina. You're right. Yes.
Is the railing
Just to be
around
clear, the
reveal?
pier's not closed. The pier's not closed. The pier's fully open right now. So
But it's not being used for what
it's not closed, and it's open, and it is being used. Just for clarity, just for clarification standpoint, it's really.
Is the railing around the pier revealed? Is that what is supposed to be on the pier itself rather than the cyclone fencing?
It's this one at the edge of the platform.
Right.
That's
And
the.
is that what the master plan calls for, that type of railing?
Yeah, that's what's in the zoning. And the one around the pier reveal, just the top bar of it is.
But it's got the wood on the top.
Yeah, the bottom is the same.
So I think it's pretty clear that the committee is uniform in not wanting, at least the members that have spoken so far, and no one has spoken in favor of the fence that's there. I think it's pretty, to me, it's clear that you're asking that you can just keep the fencing that's up there is not gonna be approved by the committee. I could be wrong, but down, as we vote, but I think that's pretty clear. I'm also wondering about the possibility of making the design a bit more flowing and less boxy.
I mean, I think we've got a lot of different inputs from people on sort of the desire to have a multi-use area. I mean, I think it flows pretty well. I think there's a tremendous amount of open space. I respect some of these comments, but I don't feel that this is a boxy design. I think it has a tremendous amount of places sitting and opportunities, and a lot of places for reflection, open space. So I don't agree with that it feels boxy in my opinion, but people are allowed to have their different opinions.
Adele, can I ask, I tend to agree with that. I like the varied spaces, you know, a lot of them, so, you know, varied in the content of you know, physical structures and plantings and so forth. Regarding the edges, are the lawns and the planted areas, are they raised up a little bit higher than the pathway, sort of like a domino?
Yeah, the lawn is a 4-inch curb, yeah, with a couple or more, a few openings for people with wheelchairs or strollers that can, you know, enter.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments before we end this and go to the committee meeting?
I do, Del.
Okay.
And Dell, there is one person who wanted to speak.
Okay, thank you, Marie. So Corey?
So I had a question about the lawn. So I know over at the edge they have an issue with dogs on their lawn. So it kind of became a de facto dog park and then sort of tore it up. So I just wanted to know if you had any consideration for that.
I mean, one thing that we're doing is putting a dog run most likely within the building itself. So I think that will sort of help with some of that, as well as, you know, obviously balancing the amount of paving versus lawn space as well. And then obviously we're long-term owners and management of the company. So I think, you know, we'll work to sort of work with the dog community, sort of hopefully to find alternatives to the park itself, including an internal dog run, which will be on one of our roofs in the building.
Got it.
So will that dog run be accessible to the public or just to the people living?
No, just to the building residents.
So I think Corey's question, you know, included people in the public or having their.
It does.
walking
It's
their dogs over there.
It's something to consider of the space because
I think it, yeah.
it's true that the edge doesn't have a dog run, but Bushwick Inlet Park does. So I just think it's something that you guys might want to be aware of or talk to Edge ownership. I think that they actually changed it out so that they now have like AstroTurf, which isn't ideal, but just something that it obviously ruins a grassy area if you don't want to have your toddler sitting on it.
Yeah, the grassy triangle, Greenpoint Landing is a de facto dog run, basically.
Yeah. Well, those are good points, and we're definitely aware of the balance of trying to have an active programming space available for people and not having overtaken by dogs, which I think our neighbor to the north had that struggle. So I think it's going to be a combination of providing alternatives to our community residents as well as management and ongoing sort of seeing how that goes.
Got it. And I just, in terms of some of the things that other people said, you know, I agree in adding some evergreens just because obviously evergreens are green in the winter as well. So I think that they do add a certain quality to the park and then, you know, making it feel a little bit more like a park as compared to just, you know, an area in front of a building. And then this is just a question more because I don't know the answer to it. So it seems that you guys are bringing in rocks that you are putting into the river in front of the site. Is that correct?
There is the riprap and the bulkhead is a little bit underneath. So we are covering the bulkhead so you don't see the wall of the bulkhead with riprap. So the riprap kind of covers it. And then here and there, we might have a big boulder coming in. Again, as a kind of a plaything, something that's more natural material, kind of climbing from the water onto the upland. We also are planning to have some driftwood and things like that. So kind of, again, kind of bringing the materiality at the water's edge up a little bit.
Got it. So,
right?
Sorry.
Entitle pool?
Well, we're the picture that we're looking at right now. All of those are large sort of white rocks, and beneath that is the riprap. Is that, or that is the riprap, and then
that is the part of the riprap. Yeah, it's the riprap. There will be planting amongst it at the edge. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, Marie, someone did sign up to speak.
Yes, I tried to turn this microphone on.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
It's Renzo?
Yes, this is
Okay.
Renzo. I'm sorry. I don't know why it wasn't working. I don't know if you guys can see me. Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Could be seen and
So-
heard.
We can see you.
It's
And
good to
hear you.
hear. Okay, okay. So, good evening, Community Board 1. My name is Renzo Ramirez, and I am a member of 32BJ SEIU. I'm here on behalf of my union to share our concerns regarding One Java Owner LLC's proposed development at 1 Java Street waterfront. We believe that developers should commit to providing prevailing wage building service jobs in order to build a more equitable economy in New York City. Most building service jobs are filled by local members of the community who need and deserve family-sustaining wages and benefits. One Java Owner LL has reached out about making a commitment to the prevailing wage for building service workers. We will continue to keep the community updated as we hold conversations with the developer. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anything else before we close up the public hearing and move to our committee meeting? All right. So that's the end of the public hearing. And let's proceed to our committee meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. Sure.
Someone needs to listen to us. All right, Marie, do we have to have another roll call or can we just proceed?
You want me to do a roll call? I can do that.
I don't really want you to do a roll call. I don't think we need it, but if we have to have one, we can do it. Otherwise, I would just proceed.
If you needed to open a committee meeting,
We need the roll call?
yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Del Teague,
Here.
Maria Vieira, Trina McKeever,
Here.
Stephen Chesler,
Here.
Aaron Drinkwater, Moish Endig, Bozena Kaminsky,
Here.
Abraham Leibovitz, Sante Michelli,
Yeah.
Rabbi David Niederman
Here.
is here, Karen Nieves, Isaac Sofa,
Here.
Robert Solano, Stephen Weidberg. Stephen, you here? Stephen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. William Vega? I see you, William.
I see him.
Can you say you're here? Simon Weiser? Michael Andrews? Keith Berger?
Here.
Corey Canton?
Here.
Michael Kowalski?
Here.
Katie Nebutowski?
Here.
Allison Stone?
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it seems that there are there is some difference of opinion with respect to the design as to whether it is flowing enough or whether, you know, their design, which has the different sections and segments, is acceptable. And there is as I say, a difference of agreement. I guess one thing I will raise here that to be fair, they have reached out to the community a number of times. And as Katie pointed out, at this point, it may be late in the game to ask them to come up with a very different design, especially since they've responded to prior opinions and requests from the community. But I think we need to discuss that. I actually understand what Sante is saying, but on the other hand, obviously people on the committee have witnessed their reaching out, and at this point, I don't know if it's realistic to ask them to have another design that's more flowing. Katie, you did in your request to make things a little bit more curved. That I think is specific enough that maybe they could, if everybody agreed to that, maybe that is something they could do at this point, at this stage. I also think it's, I'm confused about whether whether the committee wants to object to the use of the concrete pavers rather than the asphalt. I think that many people feel concrete is better in general, but is there a feeling that even though concrete might be more desirable in many ways, that we want to keep the asphalt? I'm confused about that.
Well,
So
Adele, can I just, raise a technical point? That
Yeah,
technically, we're not voting on the design. We're just voting on these two waivers. And the second one has two parts to it. The first one is about the, the trees,
yep,
not being 50% evergreen. And then the second one's about the pier railings and that railing around the, whatever it's called, I forget what it's called.
Peer review.
Yeah, thank you. But we could attach conditions that related to one or the others, related to the issues people have with the design in general.
I agree, but I think if the committee wants to address some conditions that we would like to, make a statement about, for instance, the railing around the pier, I think now may be the only time to make that statement. Maybe I'm wrong. Is you have a sense that there would be another time when we could do it?
No, I think that's now. I think that's like a yes or no.
Yeah.
They're asking for a straight out waiver for that against the waterfront access plan.
So let me just ask about the screening buffer, because that may be something easy. I didn't hear any objections to the waiver allowing for a decrease in the height for the screening buffer so that there's more visibility for, essentially, I think, for the public.
I
Can we
agree with
agree that that's acceptable?
I agree with that waiver.
I agree too.
I didn't hear anyone objecting to it.
No, I
Do we
don't.
want to take? So do we want to take a vote on that? Because if we can get rid of that, then we go to the second waiver, and then we can discuss any conditions that, if we can, agree on any conditions that we want to make. I think it's pretty clear that that the railing that they have now that they'd like to keep around the pier is pretty is just not acceptable.
Well, especially because they have the railing that does comply around the peer review.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's hideous. So how about we have a vote on whether to approve the screening buffer waiver?
One question
Um,
about the screening buffer.
Yes,
Motion to approve that.
Oh,
okay.
I
there a
second that
second?
motion. I second that
Okay.
motion.
Who said, okay,
Hey, Corey, what was your point?
Thanks. So my question was with the screening buffer, my understanding of that was that it was some sort of shrubbery that they would like not to have to use. But I did think that we did want to have some evergreens in replacement of that. So something in addition to provide a little more coverage. Was I right on that?
Well, no, what my understanding is that they have a requirement to have 50% evergreen tree species, but they want to reduce it to like 10 and use other types of species that will lose its leaves during the cold months. But you'll have the view shed through the bottom of the tree that you won't have with an evergreen.
That's what I understood too. And yeah.
And is that separate from the screening?
I think that's the same thing.
Okay.
I think for the
I mean,
screening, they don't want to have these evergreens that will ultimately prevent anyone, it'll essentially be like shrubbery, like a wall of evergreens so that, and people will not be able to see through it, and it will, in their opinion is that what it'll do is it'll provide more privacy for the residents than they would like to provide. They would like to have more openness and for the public.
Well, I imagine they want views from their building. But I mean, I guess my suggestion would be, I don't think we need a wall of greenery, but I do think that some of the trees that they have planted could be evergreens.
I don't know. I mean, they're asking for a waiver so that they don't have to have the 4-foot high, evergreens creating this almost solid, wall. So.
I think they're asking for 10% instead of 50%, and that's my motion. I'm making motion to approve that.
Okay, let's have a vote.
Can I just add to this point? I believe that it's from the retail, not from an apartment. That's what they said, by the way.
That's true. It was from it would probably block off.
And can that retail be a bar on the water?
I didn't understand that.
Can that retail be also entertainment? Because then the screen will be very important to have. To divide something with very high activity, not just a resident from the building sitting there, but an actual bar with outdoor space in the very small park. So the 50%, of course, as Corey said, it's kind of too ambiguous right now at these stages. We reduce it to 10%, which is practically full visibility of the waterfront. But what Corey said, they want visibility, and we do not know at this stage why this visibility. Is that very innocent? Because
but Sante, we don't know. So we don't know. We can't find that out right now. So
no, but I want to say that the danger is to reduce it is to open the park to something that can be more invasive for the park. That's all.
I actually like the idea. I hope that there's a restaurant there. It's really wonderful to eat or have a cafe at the waterfront, and I would love that. And I think it'd be wonderful to be able to have more visibility.
Well, I don't agree about that. We have so many restaurants that they taken away from the park, and
but
then
we have no restaurants that are on the shoreline here at all.
we shouldn't have it.
That's my opinion.
That's outside of the scope of what we're talking about.
let's have a vote on this motion now, because we have more to deal with right now. So let's have a vote on the motion, which is to approve the waiver for the screening buffer. So Marie, could you have
I have Miss Kaminsky. She made the motion. Who seconded it?
Yes, and Katie Napolowski seconded it.
Okay. Del Teague?
Yes.
Maria Vieira, Trina McKeever,
Yes. Yes.
Stephen Chesler,
Yes.
Erin Drinkwater, Moish Indig, Bozena Kaminsky,
Yes.
Abraham Leibovitz, Sante Michelli. Sante?
No, no,
Rabbi Needleman?
Here,
How do you vote on the motion?
yes.
Okay. Karen Nieves? Isaac Sofa?
Yes.
Robert Solano? Stephen Weidberg?
Yes.
William Vega? William, I see you're on the call, but I don't hear you. Simon Weiser? Michael Andrews? Michael? Mr. Andrews?
Sorry, that was me, Dell, unmuting on the walk back from my kid's soccer practice so I could speak next.
I'm sorry?
It's Keith. I'm up next, so I unmuted. You're probably just hearing background
Oh,
noise.
okay. Keith Berger?
Yes.
Corey Canton?
Yes.
Michael Kowalska?
Yes.
Katie Nabotowski? Kate?
Yeah.
Allison Stone?
Yes.
Okay, so you have one no and the rest have been yes. The motion passes. Dell?
Tell you're muted.
Marie, can you tell me how many yeses there are?
Well, just give me 1 second. One,
Okay,
two,
thank
three,
you.
4, 5, 6, 12, 13.
Thank you. All right, let's go on to the waiver for the guard rail. Any thoughts on that?
I think if we don't ask for it now, they're never going to change it.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to disapprove the waiver for the pier guardrail. They use something that complies with the waterfront access plan, but to approve the wood railing for the pier thing. I keep forgetting the name of it. What's it called?
Peer
Peer
review,
review,
I
thank
think.
you.
I'll second that.
Who seconded it?
Katie.
Okay, vote. Marie, could you ask for a vote?
Del
Oh,
T?
I'm asking for a vote. Yes.
Maria Vieira? Not present. Trina McKeever?
Yes.
Stephen Chesler?
Yes.
Erin Drinkwater? Not present. Moish Endig? Not present. Bozena Kaminsky?
Yes.
Abraham Leibovitz? Not present. Sante Michelli?
yes.
Rabbi Needleman,
Yes.
Karen Nieves, not present. Isaac Sofa,
Yes.
Robert Solano, not present. Stephen Weidberg, Stephen?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. William Vega,
Yes.
Simon Weiser, Michael Andrews, Mr. Andrews, Keith Berger,
Yes.
Corey Canton,
Yes.
Michael Kowalska,
Yes.
Katie Neblatowski, Kate,
Yes.
Allison Stone.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's unanimous.
Yes.
So my next question is, are there any other comments that we want to make in addition to our vote?
Regarding the ground, the pathway surfaces, asking to consider using wood where appropriate, maybe in secondary pathways or, Katie, what's the type of concrete they use that Hunters points out?
It's like a bluestone poured concrete, but she said that they would need to have a waiver for that.
Okay.
Another recommendation is that they use Virginia pine. I propose that anyway. It is native to the area, actually, the actual area, not just to the East Coast. And then,
Does anyone have an objection to putting that in as a recommendation? This isn't an official vote, so I'm not going to ask for a roll call. Any objection to suggesting Virginia pines?
I like that idea.
Okay, great. Do we want to also ask them to have some evergreens?
well, they're gonna have 10%.
Well, Virginia
Okay.
pine,
Yeah,
Virginia pine's an
Virginia pine
evergreen.
is-
That's
Yeah.
true, Virginia pine
Virginia
would be.
pine's an evergreen.
That's true. Yep, right, sorry.
And then
Okay.
I'd also like to put in as a recommendation that they curve the corners a little bit down.
Does anyone object to that?
All right, I mean, I understand where Katie's coming from, but I feel like with the theme that they have designed, I think it might look a little weird having just rounded corners. Unless you can add, curviness throughout the park. I feel like if you're gonna do curviness, do it, much more extensively, but just to do the corners. I don't know, I think that might look a little weird, but that's just me. But
I hear you, Steve.
yeah,
It has to be all of them, but I think there's some parts that, I don't know, it just could be softened a little somehow. But I hear what you're saying, Steve, but
yeah.
it's very angular. And
Can they, is there a way to soften the edges of the pathways?
Guys, if I can say, far more complex, we're talking very generically. It's a problem of design concept, I believe, and I don't think everybody's comfortable. Again, I feel always the only person here that has to go in opposition and saying, if something is not functioning, that they're meeting or not, I believe we need to express. I mean, there are the edges there, they're very extreme, very sharp angle. I don't think the drawing gave us ability to understand. I said that clearly there were not enough elevation section. So you saw a couple rendering, which is always instrumental to have you voted in a certain way. And that's very normal when you do this rendering. So if you tell me you have fully understood what this design is going to be, based on that, I believe it, I don't think can be true. And again, I repeat myself, and I don't want to take any more of your time. If the design concept can be taken and brought to certain modification to achieve the to make a little bit more fluent, we have indirectly resolved the issue of this sharp edge corner that Katie is calling to round them up. But it's not just you round them up. Those corners you see there on a plan, they are in different elevation. There's pier, there's up, place are down, a place are up. So you don't just round it, you have to change the concept.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Did I explain clearly what I mean?
Yes, I think that's a good point.
I would just add, but I feel like all the plantings, I mean, you know, I feel like, you know, Karen and James Corner Field Operations are master plant designers. And I think between the plantings and then the wooden seating and the railings will soften things in their own way. I feel like, I don't know if you've seen Hudson River or Pier 26. It's pretty, you know, very straight, but it has a lot of textures and wood and plantings and going on. So, so I don't know. I mean, I love the whole, the concept of curves versus rigid edges. But I don't know if it's 100% applicable, you know, to every design, you know.
Also, Dale, one of the reasons I feel this way, unfortunately, I couldn't attend other meeting. I had a serious family. I'm attending even too many meetings, I have to say. So I'm always here, at least in this committee meetings. It's a little bit against what we've been advocating for years when we try to stop certain trend, right? You know, we've been talking naturalized waterfront, the rounding up. I don't know. I feel it's so sharp in a sense, geometrically sharp, this design. It feels a little bit against about what we've been talking for a few years here. You know, that's all. So personally, I would not feel to give an honest vote if I would say yes, just to follow you.
And this is, of course, we're not voting on this. I'm just trying to get a consensus here. Would it make any sense?
So voting, yes, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah. But would it make any sense to ask them to consider the possibility of having a slightly more flowing, having slightly less angular, less sharp angles, or Steve, I don't know if you would go with that because I think you said that you liked the design and you liked having the different.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not objecting to it, but I understand.
Also, that's a strong tenet of the design, the pathways and the line of when they explained the concept. That was one of the first things that were explained. Just the way the pathways worked.
This is true, but this is true in the sense that, yes, this was the concept that this is like, I don't know, boat slips or something like that. But when we think about it, earlier than that, there would have been natural shoreline down there with natural pathways, which wouldn't have been straight. So they can hearken to other things to, you know, could go one way or the other. I do feel like it's nicer to have more fluidity. That's a personal preference. Yeah.
Well, are we, again, would there be an objection to asking them to consider the possibility of more fluidity in the design?
No objection.
It's up to them. If they absolutely can't, they can't, but it would be a suggestion to consider it.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Okay. And I'm interested again in the material for the pavers. is there actually an objection to switching to the concrete rather than the asphalt? Because it sounds to me like there are a lot of advantages to concrete over asphalt.
Why are you saying that?
From
I
what-
believe I love concrete. I just to me, as I said before, it is more because we've been talking about the master plan before years ago, and certainly something that we do know that those asphalt pavers, they actually have been performing quite well. I saw concrete. If concrete is not cast properly, if concrete is not engineered properly, may not have the same durability of these pavers. And the pavers, the asphalt, they perform well even during the hurricane. Look at the piers. Look even at Transmitter Park or other park, how sometimes cracks telegraph. And again, you know, is that it will happen here? I don't know. And is the concrete going to look nice? Again, I love concrete. I said I'm a brutalist designer. It's just I'm trying to stick to the idea. We have a master plan. We know certain material. They look good. They've been performing well. They may require less maintenance. Do we want to break the rule and create the precedents? That's all.
The
That's a
asphalt
good
pavers
question.
are not throughout the park, like in Transmitter or other parks. They're more at the shoreline. And I kind of like having a varied surface rather than it all being the same asphalt. Yeah. The asphalt was never made or prescribed to be throughout a park. There, in the master plan, there's varied surface areas actually.
Also, the concrete costs less money. The chain link fence costs less money. Every time we choose for these variances, they have some budget reason because they cost less. I can tell you because I know very well, just the pier on that fence we just voted, going with the stainless steel probably can cost millions and millions of dollars more. Millions and millions. Probably that pier is $3 million in Raleigh, you know. So that's what we're doing when we vote in favor of certain material that there are variants to the master.
Asphalt, yeah, concrete is not a variance.
Yeah, this is not where, again, we're not voting on this. I just felt that if we have unanimity in something, then we can put it down as a suggestion, a recommendation. But it doesn't, I don't get the sense that there's a unanimous sense about these pavers.
So my comment on asphalt is that it draws a lot of heat.
Right.
So
I think that
I
was
think
one of the
concrete would be
concerns that
superior
was
to
raised.
asphalt.
Yeah. All right, is there any, are there any other things that you want to add to this? If not, we'll just call it a night. Okay, thank you, everyone. So that's, I'll see you all on the 9th.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, thank you.
Good night. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.